Display, the Supreme instructed. The image appeared on the bridge's display screens, and all on board were met with a ghostly visage. A face from the past, a face thought long dead to all. The face of the Dalek creator and one-time Emperor Davros. This child will endure, whereas you will not. Ace wasn't impressed. She turned to the doctor, eager to hear his strategy. You can spring your trap any day now, Professor. What's your weapon of choice? I told you, Ace, manners, the doctor replied. Regenerative capability within my grasp, exclaimed Davros. I shall be confined no longer to this artificial means of mobility. I will triumph over life as well as time. Ace tried to shut Davros out. There was raw strength in his voice, something that defied the years of wear and tear on his ancient and evil face. It was the strength of those in her past, the ill-intentioned devils of Perival, who spoke with such defiance in their breath for all things good and true. They believed that their might was their right. There was to be no reason, no mediation, no tolerance. It was their way, or there was to be nothing. For Ace, this voice needed to be silenced, quickly and sufficiently, for she could not longer stand to recognize its stature. But when she sought comfort with the doctor, she found his eyes were closed. He had froze where he stood, locked in place. He began speaking in tongues for but a moment. Then his lips, too, fell silent. There was something stirring in the air, a quiet before 1,000 storms. The doctor was up to something strange, and when things became uncertain, it was time to challenge it head-on. Was this perhaps fear? Impossible, thought the Dalek Supreme. The stakes were too great for this to be an attack of anxiety. Explain, the Supreme asked of Omega, believing the doctor's associate was too low-brow to contemplate the actions of her friend and mentor. He is establishing some sort of contact, with whom I am not certain. Perhaps the girl... There's no funny business going on in my head, mister, Ace assured him. Then who? Answer, the Dalek Supreme bellowed. Omega had his suspicions, but it was too late to act upon them, for contact had been made. In this meeting of minds, the doctor found the child's thoughts to be a delightful reprieve from the cold calculations of those that had engineered its creation. This was a child with a strong will, a fertile and inventive imagination. It was also claustrophobic and eager to break out, explore what lay beyond this steel contraption it had spent much of its infancy in. And before that, the confines of labs, it had gazed out upon the stars and knew instinctively that its desires were deeply rooted in exploration. It wanted to be out there, not in here. The doctor sensed it was looking for two things. The first was for release. The other was to look for someone to blame for suppressing that first desire. Ah, what luck, a telepath. I know you can hear me. It is imperative you act swiftly, open a slither of space and time, traverse past the edge, explore the multiverse, settle down, make some tea, and remember, always remember. And then it happened. An impossibility, a miracle, a blessing, a curse, all wrapped in one. The child within reacted with unfiltered fury. Before the doctor, it had been docile, passive. It allowed its creators to deem it fit for whatever purpose they desired. The child did not know any better. Its parents, it believed, knew best. But that was before the doctor, and now it knew better. Nothing stood a chance, for the doctor had given it purpose, a reason to burst out of its pod and unleash a naked rage onto the universe. The interior of the ship began to shudder, then tremble, and finally it began to split apart. The Daleks were now in the grip of sheer panic as the Doctor and Ace fled down the corridors. Emergency! Black hole! Collapse imminent! The Dalek crew all uttered in unison, the bridge beginning to collapse, burst and burn. Omega was beside himself with rage and grief, as once more the curtain of tragedy came down on him. As oblivion approached, his thoughts were trained on what the Doctor had achieved with the child, and on the child itself. Whatever had the child become? The child's rage did not spare a thought for the Dalek vessel, nor for Davros's own ship. It knew both desired to exploit it for their own nefarious ends. They would not grant it mercy. It was only fair the child respond in kind. It left both vessels battered and broken, near lifeless debris circulating the collapsing black hole. No worlds infected by their insidious evil would be replenished. The war would continue until exhaustion was followed by extinction. But exhaustion, the child found, was now also overtaking it. It could not extinguish the sparks of all its adversaries, even if it wanted to, for it soon began to remember words spoken by the Doctor in conflicts of old. Moral quandaries that had challenged him to redefine where he stood with the Daleks. When presented with the choice to wipe them out once and for all, rid the universe of their blight, he reached down into himself and asked, did he have the right? Another slither of thought showed all the good the furthered existence of the Daleks would achieve. Whole worlds and civilizations under their rule would band together. They would resist, they would fight, they would prevail. Perhaps the child did not fully understand. After all, it was young and only fresh out the box. What was important is that, at least for this brief dance, it believed. And so it spared what was left of the ships, even restoring life functions to them, and escorted them back through the black hole, just on its brink of collapse, depositing them back in their own universe, cut off from the multiple worlds where the continuous war was being waged. Perhaps by sparing this platoon of Daleks, as well as their creator, cutting them off from their primary resources, it would humble them in ways that would necessitate some self-reflection. There were so few of them left now, and they weren't getting any younger. Inside the TARDIS, the Doctor operated the console, a face one of relief and resolve, but also one of concern. Ace asked if everything was all right. No, we were there for an entirely different purpose. The Time Lords had dispatched me to retrieve the Crystal of Ur. Instead, we found that child. The Crystal of what? Ace asked. A vital component of the heavenly paradigm, he explained. A machine that can rewrite events to suit a more desirable outcome, so whole worlds become less warlike, self-harmful or destructive, or capable of being a danger to others. The crystal can also assist in rejuvenating aging populations. An honorable intention, but I find it just a smidge out of season and character for my people to tamper with the natural order. Sounds like the sort of meddling you're always telling me is best avoided, Ace responded. Yes, and the child provided me with a desirable distraction. At least it gives me something to inform them of when I report back. And when will that be? Ace asked, grinning. She knew just how inconsistent the Doctor was at keeping appointments. Whenever I like, Ace, said the Doctor. The Doctor turned to the console and set to work on setting the coordinates for their next foray into the unknown. I reached out to the child just before it consumed the ships. It offered them and Davros mercy in the end. You think it'll remember you? Ace inquired. Whatever memory it may have of me, one can only hope it is a timeless one, the Doctor replied. And so the TARDIS would move on, another mission successfully accomplished, and watching them go from the other end of the multiverse stood that timeless child, its thoughts forever trained on the man who had shown it the wider potential of both it and the universe it now dwelled in. It would remember, always, but its thoughts were also of the mercy it had shown the Daleks and Davros, and it knew, deep down, they were not quite done with the Doctor just yet. Clutching to the remnants of his command vessel, Davros spotted a body up ahead. Omega's body, all manner of life it once had, was long abandoned. For Omega belonged to the world of antimatter, and this couldn't exist where existing matter stood. The hollowed-out shell clutched in its hands a sharpened object, a crystal, a light pulsating from it. Davros, his life support system sustaining him, swam through the stars towards the body. He reached out and grasped the crystal in his one good hand. It shimmered and wild white hot energy engulfed its bearer, and as another Dalek vessel towered over his stricken body, ready to retrieve him, Davros realized change of the forever sort was coming, and there would be a reckoning.